Welcome to part 3 of our video series, Understanding the Crypto Revolution. These videos are designed to start with the basics and build upon that in each succeeding installment. Though we never give investment advice, we believe that it is vital that everyone be fully aware of the upheaval that is already shaking the world's money systems. You may ask, is this a bad thing? To answer this, consider what is happening to our existing systems. Throughout history, governments all over the world have abused their money systems. It is far too tempting to leaders to fix immediate problems by using permanently damaging measures. Inflating the money supply to cover irresponsible spending is always the easy fix. They say, let's just do it, and let future generations bear the consequences. Do you ever feel apologetic to a cashier when you try to pay for a hamburger with a $100 bill? Get over it. You're not so rich. A $100 bill today is equal to $67 in year 2000 money. Excuse my grammar, but it ain't what it used to be. And it's only getting worse and worse by the day. In fact, the decline in the value of your $100 is accelerating exponentially. Just think what this does to people with fixed incomes. What about people who have very low incomes? The greatest threat to unity is the government-forced poverty. And once people are poor and hungry, they are easy targets of control-minded politicians, and eventually, totalitarianism. This is when our freedoms are lost. Also, do you realize that the government is quietly taxing our paychecks away when they inflate the money supply? So, is changing the world's flawed money systems a bad thing? Think long and hard about it. You decide.
We have mentioned the mathematical process of hashing several times already. But hashing is so essential to the blockchain, it deserves our further study. As said before, hashing is simply the mixing up of data to the point that it is not recognizable. A simple word, or even a very long message, is run through a hashing program. What comes out is a very strange looking set of characters that look nothing like the original message. This result is called a hash. Bitcoin employs the Secured Hashing Algorithm 256, or SHA-256 for short. In computer science, a bit is a 0 or a 1. This algorithm converts regular data into a hexadecimal output of 256 bits, which translates into 64 characters. Remember that the hexadecimal system uses the numbers 0 through 9, plus the letters A through F, for a total of 16 characters. Also, remember that the resulting hash cannot be decrypted. The purpose of a hash is not to send a cryptic message. Rather, its purpose is to simply verify that a transaction is valid, that the Bitcoin being spent is available in the sender's account, and that the sender's cryptic signature is valid. Don't worry if the technical details of hashing are a little overwhelming. Just know that when Bitcoin is being spent, there is a great amount of checking and verification all along the way. The designer of the Bitcoin blockchain emphasized that the system is specifically focused on preventing the condition called double spend. Double spending is equivalent to writing a NSF check on your checking account. Consider this. In contemporary, traditional banking, a person can pass a worthless check to a creditor, and a bad check is not detected until it is deposited. But, in the blockchain world, it is impossible to send an invalid payment. This is a much more efficient process. Later in this video, we will see 2 detailed videos of actual hashing.
Before we watch a video illustration of SHA-256 in action, here are some interesting facts about hashing. 1. Deterministic. No matter how many times you put the same input in, the resulting output will always be identical. 2. Fast. It is a fast process. The hash computation is efficient and void of any heavy computation. Kinda like a random number generator. 3. Unique. For every given string of input data, the result will always be unique. 2 separate inputs will not result in the same output. In other words, outputs will not collide with each other. 4. Irreversible. You can never use the output to back into the original input. Therefore, as you can see, a hash is not a cryptographic message that can be decrypted. Its purpose is only to verify and validate an action. Now we will see a test of SHA-256 in action. Watch as I type in 4 unique messages. First, I will type in a line and end it with a period. Then, I will type in the same line, but without a period, at the end. Thirdly, I will type in the same message, in all capital letters. Finally, I will type in a longer message. As you watch the output hashes appear lower down the screen. Observe. Even a slight change in the input, such as leaving out a period, capitalizing a letter, results in an entirely different hash. Also, notice that regardless of the length of the input, the resulting hash is exactly 64 characters. Now watch the demo. Let's go back into the block and further describe its contents. As you can see, there are 6 pieces of information. 1. The version of the Bitcoin software being used. 2. A timestamp specially calculated to prevent double spend. 3. The root of the upside-down Merkle tree, called the Merkle root. 4. The hash of the preceding block. 5. The nonce. The term nonce means a number used only once. The nonce will be used by the miner to vary the hash outcome. The miner will continue to change the nonce with each reiteration, until, hopefully, it finds the target and earns the prize. Of course, thousands of other mining computers are doing the same thing, hoping to be the first to hit the target. It's a cutthroat competition. A good thing computers are machines, and don't have throats. Otherwise, mining would get rather messy. 6. The target. The target is the secret hash that everyone is trying to reach. The target is automatically set by the Bitcoin protocol. Of course, it is a random string of characters and changes with every block.
Here is a closer, more detailed view of the inside of the block header. Notice the elements of the header. Look at the software version at the top. Notice the previous block hash. Interestingly, notice how the previous block hash is presented, and then, immediately under it, it is hashed again but in reverse. Just one more security protocol that makes Bitcoin so secure. Notice the timestamp. Notice the nonce. In a few minutes, we will see how this nonce is actually used in attempting to find the target. Then, to the right, notice the target block hash. This is also called the difficulty target. Did you know that when mining becomes too fast and too easy, the software automatically adjusts the target to make it more difficult? And, when mining becomes too slow, the difficulty target is softened to make it easier and faster to hit. This is the beauty of the blockchain. It's almost like the natural world where the ecosystem naturally corrects any imbalances that may occur. Like, if too many trees are trying to grow in a limited space, the taller trees will drown out the saplings. There are other self-regulating features of Bitcoin to be discussed later.
I have to admit, that lovely Merkle tree is absolutely captivating. It's like art. In 1979, Ralph Merkle, at Stanford University, wrote a paper titled A Certified Digital Signature. His concept later became known as the Merkle tree, after the so-called nodes. Declare a transaction as being valid, not fraudulent, not an overspend. The node releases the transactions to the blockchain to be hung on the Merkle tree. There, each transaction is hashed the first time, and then paired with the hash of another transaction and hashed a second time. The resulting hash of the hashes of the original two transactions are then hashed with a hash of the hashes of two other original transactions. The result of the hash of the hash of the hashes becomes the root of the Merkle tree. As you can see, there is a whole lot of hashing going on. This is akin to mixing separate ingredients of a cake into a batter, and then remixing the mixed batter with the mixed batter of other ingredients. The result is, none of the original ingredients are any longer distinguishable. Now Jason, an expert, will demonstrate how the miners attempt to win the prize by trying to hit the secret target hash. He's a great teacher. Watch him work.
Alright, so now that we understand hashing, we can move on and talk about what the miners are actually doing. So when a miner picks up a block, the main part of the block that they're concerned about is this block header. The block header is where all the information that they need is contained. So the first thing they're going to look for is this previous block hash. And that's going to be contained in the block header. And the previous block hash is like a fingerprint of the previous block. It's a hash of everything that was contained in the previous block's header, all hashed together, and you get this output here. So this is like a unique fingerprint and what links the blocks together throughout the chain. The next thing that's going to appear is the Merkle root. And the Merkle root is just a fancy word for the hash of all the transactions contained within the block. So this is essentially a fingerprint of the block because it's all the transactions hashed together. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like right here. Okay, so the Merkle root, also sometimes known as the root hash, is the fingerprint of all the transactions contained within a block. And I want to show you exactly what I mean by that. So imagine what we're looking at right here is a block. And this block has 8 transactions in it. And you can see these 8 transactions along the bottom of the block. So each transaction has transactional data contained within inside, and that information is hashed. So you'll see transaction 1 corresponds with hash 1, and this is a unique fingerprint associated with this transaction. Same thing for transaction 2, hash 2, transaction 3, hash 3, and so forth and so on, all the way to transaction 8, which has hash 8. So that's the first row. We've established the hashes of each of the transactions. But to take things even further, we keep going. So we combine the hash of 1 and 2 to get this hash here. Then 3 and 4 produces a new output. 5 and 6, same thing. And 7 and 8 completes the second row. We keep going all the way up, and you see how we're working kind of like a root, kind of like a tree root. So now we have the hash of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, ultimately working our way up to the root hash, or Merkle root, which is this long string here, which is the hash of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can see why this is important is because it's very unique, because you can never go back and change 4 because it would mess up everything contained within here. And then once blocks add on, it messes up all of those blocks here. So that's what makes the blockchain very secure and limits the ability to change data. Okay, so we understand previous block hash, we understand Merkle root. Next thing is the difficulty target. And we're going to come back and discuss this in a little bit, but one thing I want you to notice here is the amount of zeros that precede the number. So this difficulty target normally starts with a long string of zeros. And right now, the current amount of zeros that the difficulty target is starting with is 19. And if you remember from some previous videos, we've discussed that it takes 10 minutes to mine a block. And these zeros are what allow them to control the time. So if a lot of miners jump on the network and increase the hashing power, they'll add an additional 0. If miners jump off the network and there's less hashing power, they will take zeros away. And what that does is lead to how difficult it is to actually guess the output of the block. And the last piece of information you're going to see right here is the nonce. And nonce is a fancy word for a number once, which is basically a unique number. It's also the only variable in this situation. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second, but these 4 items are what allow us to mine a block. And I'll show you exactly how we go about doing that right now. So we're back to the SHA-256 hash generator. So this top line here that I've put in, this is the previous block's header, the hash of the previous block's header. This second line represents the Merkle root. And this third line here represents the nonce, the variable in the situation. I've put this number here because this is the difficulty target. This is what we have to get our output lower than. So we have to put in numbers into this situation that are going to produce an output that is lower or less than this difficulty target. So it's going to have to start with 19 zeros, and then the next number is going to have to be less than 8. So I'm going to take this away for now. And we can see with our previous block header hash, our Merkle root, and our nonce, we do not get to a number starting with 19 zeros. So what hashing essentially is this number here, the top one, that doesn't change. That's a unique identifier. So is the second line. But this number nonce, this can change. This is a variable. So we get the nonce, and it's not right. So what a Bitcoin miner does is, it's 895409233. We take off the last 3, and we make it a 4. It changed. Nope. Now it doesn't start with 19 zeros. Make it a 5. Nope. Doesn't start with 19 zeros. Make it a 6. Nope. And you guys get this, right? And I haven't even got one that started with 1 0 or had a 0 in the first 19 spots. So you can imagine how long this is going to take and how much power this is going to take. So that is essentially what Bitcoin miners are doing. They are adjusting the nonce by 1 at a time in effort to guess a number that starts with 19 zeros, which is less than the difficulty target.
As Jason illustrated, the work of the mining machines requires a lot of power and is expensive. Because most of us pay a relatively modest electric bill every month, it is at first difficult to understand why the cost of electricity can be such a big deal to the miners. So we have to remember that the powerful mining computers are running 24 hours per day, and 365 days per year. Therefore, mining rewards and transaction fees are necessary to justify the investment required. There are 2 ways miners earn money. They are awarded bitcoins for each block they create. Presently this reward is 6.25 BTCs to the miner who hits the target first. A value today of $344,000. Interestingly, the Bitcoin protocol reduces the reward every 4 years. This is called halving. Halving is how Satoshi limited the production of new Bitcoin along the way. The other way miners are paid is for processing the day-to-day transactions. Even when the last Bitcoin is mined in year 2140, miners will continue to have a source of income.
This concludes part 3 of this journey into the world of Bitcoin. In the next installment, we will talk about how the blockchain is governed. What is a fork? What is a 51% attack? What is a $5 wrench attack? What is the Lightning Network? How to buy, sell, and store Bitcoin. How to compare Bitcoin to the thousands of altcoins, how the IRS taxes your profits from selling Bitcoin, how price predictions are calculated based on the stock-to-flow principle. So much more to come. Please send your questions and they will get personal attention and replies. Send to Lonnie at LonnieHardyCPA.com. Thank you.